Hi, everybody. Dan Illman, Mike Beer. Special coverage of the world's richest race. On Saturday in Saudi Arabia, it's the $20 million Saudi Cup. Let's take a look at this quality field. We're going a one-turn mile and an eighth. This race is for 4-year-olds and up. And I think you can make a case for 7 and 8 of these horses, Mike. The number 8, one of the Japanese contenders, Meisho Hario, is out. The 15 Scotland Yard draws in. These numbers are in program number order. We'll talk about the post positions when we discuss each horse individually. But what a quality field. Breeders' Cup Classic winner, White Barrio, is your 3-1 morning line favorite. You've got a Preakness winner and a Pegasus World Cup winner, a National Treasure. He's 8-1.
Interesting race for sure, Dad. I mean, I guess you put up that kind of money, you should get at least some of the interesting horses to ship over and run in it.
Let's throw up the Timeform US pace projector for this race. And there does seem to be a good amount of speed in here. Hoist the Gold's newfound running style is to run and gun. You have to figure he's going to be up close to the pace. Crown Pride from Japan has shown some speed in his career. Isolate also has some speed. This is an interesting group because Saudi Crown is quick from the gate. Carmel Road has shown speed overseas. What kind of speed do the overseas horses have, though, however, to run with the Americans? I mean, we don't even see National Treasure here.
I didn't feel there are some of the international horses do have speed, or at least that's their running style. I didn't really think they were fast enough, maybe, to go with the American horses. Your note there on National Treasure is well taken. How is he not part of this pace in this race? I mean, it feels like they found out that his running style is to go no matter how fast the pace is.
Hard to imagine. I would think in a perfect world, you'd have Hoist the Gold out there with maybe National Treasure, the 9, Saudi Crown, the 11, those 3, 1, 2, 3 going into the first turn. Let's take things in program number order, beginning with the number 1, Carmel Road. This horse breaking from post position 14 on Saturday. Here's Carmel Road winning a prep race at Saudi Arabia, going a mile last time out. He wins very, very easily off the screen. Now he's got to stretch out to a mile and an eighth.
Yeah, it's a big question. It's also, it feels like a way tougher race for him. He looked good winning here, Dan. He got a great trip in this race. He was very confidently ridden, and he just wins it for fun. They're going to stretch him out here. It's obviously a way tougher spot for him.
If you remember Carmel Road from back in the day, Bob Baffert had him when he was 2. He ran second in the Los Alamitos Futurity. He's 1 for 3 for his new connections in Saudi Arabia. The number 2 breaking from post position 6 from Japan is Crown Pride. He was 5th in the Saudi Cup last year. He was 5th in the Dubai World Cup last year. He needed some class relief. They sent him to Korea for the Korea Cup, and he destroyed a field there. Last time out, though, no match for Lemon Pop. He's just got to do better.
Not going to bet him off the Korea Cup line, Dan. They did try him in the 2 tough races last spring, and he did his best in those races. They weren't terrible performances, but he wasn't good enough.
The number 3 breaking from post position 9 is another ex-Baffert runner. That is Defunded, and Defunded earned over $1 million for Baffert, winning the Grade 1 Gold Cup at Santa Anita last year. Here's his most recent start. This is the Awesome Again, back on September the 30th. He's going to finish second to the now retired Slow Down Andy, while finishing ahead of Senor Buscador, who's also in this race. He's a horse with good tactical speed. This is his first start off a long layoff, his first start for his new ownership group.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's necessarily overmatched by these horses, Dan. He ran some good races for Baffert back home. I'm not his biggest fan. I do feel like the 1-turn mile and an eighth could actually be key for this horse. He's got good tactical speed. He's run some really nice races. I don't feel like he wants to go much further than 9 furlongs. Maybe the one turn helps him.
The number 4 is Derma Sotogake, who's breaking from post position 13 in the Saudi Cup. He went wire to wire in the UAE Derby last year over an inside speed favoring track. He ran okay in the Kentucky Derby, and he ran a good second in the Breeders' Cup Classic last time out. Now, he had a little bit of a setback after the Classic, so he hasn't been able to get a prep run in. Supposedly, he had some little incidents on the plane flight over, so we'll see what we get from him. He has a lot of tactical speed, and he's shown some ability.
Yeah, he has. Another horse, I haven't been a big fan of his, but I'll give him the credit I guess he deserves for being second in the Classic. The last time we saw him, I felt like that was a real step in the right direction for him. And it's also interesting that's the only start he made after the Kentucky Derby. So we're talking about 1 start since last May, which I don't love, but this horse could certainly take a step forward.
The number 5 is Hoist the Gold, breaking from post position 8, winner of the Cigar Mile, 2 starts back with a giant Beyer speed figure. Although you have to look back on that race and say it was a muddy track, it was a speed favoring track. Hoist the Gold went to the lead. He might have been carried by the track. They tried him 2 turns going this distance in the Pegasus World Cup last time out, and National Treasure sort of steamrolled him.
Yeah, he just wasn't good enough in there. He did go a legit pace in that race, but National Treasure was right on top of him. And this horse was no match. I just don't feel like this is a good distance for him, Dan, one turn or not. I respect the form that he's in. His last, 3 or 4 races are all really good. Just don't like this spot for him.
Coming in from Dubai to Saudi Arabia is the number 6, Isolate, breaking from post position 2. He's a horse that has shown good speed overseas. He won the Al Maktoum Mile last time out at Meydan, showing that good early speed. He wins the race fairly comfortably. He's going to have to stretch his speed a mile and an eighth with other speed types, however, and that's a question mark.
It really is, especially when you just look at his last 2 races, and they're both quality wins over in Dubai, Dan. But he was just loose on the lead, and both of those races going the mile. That trip is not available to him here. This is a way tougher race. I just thought he was tough to make a serious case for.
Horses like Derma Sotogake and Ushba Tesoro are sort of the big name Japanese horses, but the best one might be up next. That's the 7, Lemon Pop, breaking from post position 3. Here's his most recent start, the Champions Cup, and I love this ride. He broke from post position 15, the far outside post. He had to be used hard to clear to the lead in the rail after the first quarter mile, and he is still staying on strongly. The question going into this race, Lemon Pop, a miler, could he stay a mile and an eighth? He sure did.
Yeah, he did. And you're right to point out that the way that he did it too, Dan, breaking from the outside, having to go right from the gate and clearing, and then he still had plenty left through the stretch. This is a serious performance from this horse. All of his other races, for the most part, are good too. And what I like most about him is how handy he looked in those races. He wasn't on the lead basically in any of them. He just sits in hand, waits for when it's time to go in the stretch, and then he goes. I think he's pretty dangerous in this race.
That's an excellent point. You don't want to pigeonhole him as a need the lead type as some of the others in here. I expect him to be tracking or so in the second or third flight and ready to pounce. He's in excellent form. Meisho Hario is scratched, the number 8. So we'll move on to the 9, National Treasure, breaking from post position 7 for trainer Bob Baffert. Won the Preakness, gate to wire fashion. They've been using his speed. He gave Cody's Wish all he could handle in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile, and he showed that race was no fluke in the Pegasus World Cup. He sat right off Hoist the Gold, ran right by him turning into the stretch, and holds off a hard-charging Senor Buscador. This horse ran hard every step of the way.
I really like this horse, Dan. I mean, he won the Preakness last year. That might be the worst race that he ran as a 3-year-old. Everything else that he did was pretty good, even though he didn't win a lot. And it just feels like the last 2 races, they went back to using his speed. He ran great in both of those races. He's pretty desperate to hang on in that replay we're watching there, Dan. But the second and third finishers came from the clouds. That pace was legit, and this horse held on.
The powerful Local Hope is up next. The number 10, Power in Numbers. He's going to be very popular in Saudi Arabia. He's won his last 8, including the local prep going a mile and an eighth on January the 27th. He is inside of Scotland Yard, who draws into this race as the also eligible due to the scratch. Power in Numbers is very, very game to win, but you just get the feeling the waters get a lot deeper on Saturday.
True enough. I mean, he looks beaten this race, and to his credit, he does come back and get the job done. That's 2 times in a row that he's turned away Scotland Yard. The waters are way deeper now.
Coming up next is Saudi Crown, the number 11, who just oozed potential last year as a 3-year-old for Brad Cox. He won the Pennsylvania Derby in gate-to-wire fashion. He tried to chase that pace in the Breeders' Cup Classic. That was a very disappointing performance, but he came back in his first start as a 4-year-old, and they found a great spot for him. It was the Louisiana Stakes. He took him wire to wire. He didn't take a deep breath. He didn't have to go to the bottom of the well. Can he rate? Is he fast enough to make the lead? Those are the questions.
Yeah, and they're serious questions too, because the one time that he didn't make the lead last year when he was really good was the Breeders' Cup, and he was bad in that race. So we'll see. I did like the way that he came back off the layoff. I get that it wasn't the strongest field in the world and that he was absolutely in control from the start. I still like the race that he ran, Dan. He's got a lot of upside. He's got a lot of talent. He is 1 for 4 without Lasix in his career, though, and he can't run on Lasix on Saturday.
One of the best closers, if not the outright strongest late runner in the field, is the number 12, Senor Buscador, breaking from post position 4, Saudi Crown from post position 5. Senor Buscador is in very, very good form. Second in the Cigar Mile, the track was against him that day. It was all speed, Hoist the Gold wired him. Second in the Pegasus World Cup, we saw him rallying. That Gulfstream track can be kind to speed at times. I think a 1-turn mile and an eighth works for this horse because I had some questions about his distance limitations going into the Pegasus. He's going to get some pace. He's going to be running late. And he's going to be a fair price.
Yeah, all those things are true. And he's just in really good form, too. I mean, he's one of those horses who always shows up anyway, but his recent races in particular They're really good, Dan, and maybe this race just sets up really, really well for him. If this track is playing fair on Saturday and he gets some pace to run at, I'll expect him to be there at the end.
Same thing goes for the 13. Ushba Tesoro breaking from post position 11. This horse reeled off, what, 6 in a row last year, including the Dubai World Cup. He was compromised in the Breeders' Cup Classic, I think, by a lot of pace. But in his final start last year, this is what Ushba Tesoro does when you give him some pace. He is far, far behind, but he closes resolutely to win at 1.25 miles, which might be his best distance.
It might be. We'll see. It's another horse who's just going to sit back and make one run. And so we'll see if all those things that he needs to happen in front of him actually happen in front of him here. He's a pretty dangerous horse. I think if those things do happen, though, Dan, the Breeders' Cup Classic, I think I'll just give him a pass for that. You did not want to be closing on that track.
The 14 is White Barrio. He'll break from the rail on Saturday for Rick Dutrow Jr. This horse just blossomed over the summer and into the fall, winning the Whitney. Here's the Breeders' Cup Classic where he got a beautiful trip and ride. He tracked from the pocket, angled 3 wide on the backstretch, makes the lead turning for home, holds sway over Derma Sotogake, and you can make the argument that, unlike Ushba Tesoro, this 1.25 miles might be a little far for White Barrio. He should like the 1.125. What kind of trip does he work out from the rail?
That's a pretty good point. I mean, I think he gets a good trip from the rail, Dan, because he's got good tactical speed. Listen, I think, maybe the take on White Barrio now is just supposed to be he's a different horse for Dutrow, and that's all there is to it. I'm reluctant to buy into that narrative at this point. I could go on and on about this, Dan, but I don't think anybody really wants to hear it. I'm not taking a short price on this horse at this point. We'll see what happens on Saturday.
Completing the field is the horse that draws in from the also eligible list, one of the local hopes, the 15 Scotland Yard. He was 13th in last year's Saudi Cup, and we saw him last time out. He just had no excuses to win that race. He had it in the bag. He'll break from post position 12.
Yeah, he's hard to make a case for it here. He's going to be a long shot in this race, deservedly so.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Saudi Cup. You're going Lemon Pop, White Barrio. I'm going White Barrio, Lemon Pop. Those are the two interesting horses for me, Mike. Those horses are likely going to be the top 2 choices. Just scanning the betting overseas right now, they've got White Barrio 5-2, Lemon Pop 9-2.
Yeah, I mean, I thought there were, a few other interesting horses in here too, Dan. I wanted to take a shot with Lemon Pop just because I feel like more than anything else, we'll see what kind of price he is, first of all. I wouldn't bet him at a short price, but if he's, 10-1 or so, maybe take a shot with him just because I think he might get a good trip in this race.
Mike's going 7, 14, 13, 12. White Barrio showed what he could do, obviously, in his last 2 starts. He's tactical enough to work out a trip from the rail. The short price, not enticing at all. 14, 7, 13, 14 for me. White Barrio over 3 Japanese entrants. Saudi Cup, approximate post time is 12:40 Eastern on Saturday. Good luck.